I remember the exact moment. I went to my drug dealer's house, and he didn't have straight cocaine. So he said, "Here, try this." And that day, I smoked crack for the first time.
I'm a former Detroit police officer and rode with the One Percenter Motorcycle Club. During that time, I was involved in a lot of altercations. I had a gun shoved in my face. The trigger was pulled, and I got a plate under my left eye. I'm Manny Vitale, and this is my story. All right, welcome to My Fight, Our War. I'm your host, Manny Vitale, and we're back in our second home here in Connecticut. And we have our extended family out here and absolutely love it. And you never know who you're going to meet. And our next guest is not only our next guest, but she's a guardian angel, man. And we could get into that or not. But I definitely want to appreciate everyone for your help and support. A big shout out to the Brian Cody Brothers and Sisters Foundation and the Hope Dealers here in Connecticut, along with Coach Anthony Morrissey. Coach, thank you for everything you're doing, your foundation is doing. We appreciate it. We're very proud to be part of it. And we will be going to that in further detail in the future. But the whole thing is to get people here in Connecticut involved as well in their stories. And we've got someone very special, like I said, to tell their story today. We've got Diane Hayes. Welcome to My Fight, Our War.
Thank you, Manny. It's
good
great
to see you, man.
Good to be here.
As soon as I see you, I just smile, man. You just, before we even start, man, she comes in, she goes, "I walked into the store," and the lady, "Well, you tell it." Yeah, I mean,
all right. So I pull up to the building, and there's a consignment shop in front of me, and I had a few extra minutes. So, of course, I have to go in. And I asked where this studio was, and dead face, she turns around and she says, "Oh, are you a convicted felon? Or no, are you an ex-convict?" And I'm taken back for a second. I'm like, "No, but I'm in recovery." And just like, who says that?
And you know what, though? The perfect person to say it to. It didn't end there. So then she goes into the sandwich shop. And again, it's the same thing. So, welcome to our home.
Yeah. The ex-convict, ex-felon.
No, but man, I'm
recovered
serious, man.
Woman that I am today.
Oh, you are just a ball of sunshine, man. Just being around you from the time I met you, you just have this just glow about you, and it's because of your recovery, and everything you talk about is just great. So let's just get this started, man. I want to tell everybody who you are and where you're from.
Well, I just want to say first is that I'm so blessed in my journey now that I met you guys at the hotel, and I was drawn to you. You didn't know me. I didn't know who you guys were. But it was fate that we were supposed to meet.
Definitely.
And I truly believe that people are sent to me, to spread the word and the acknowledgments and the understanding of what this disease is.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I'm Diane, and I'm born and raised at the Jersey Shore in New Jersey, complete and utter party town, tourist town. Everything bar-related and drinking-related. It was very glamorous looking. So from a very young age, I was like, wow, I want to be just like them, partying on the porch, walking down the boardwalk in their high heels and going to the clubs. And for me, it was really glamorous. Fast forward, I went to school, I went to college. I struggled with a mental illness my entire life, and that's ADHD. And I did not understand what it was, so I was fighting my entire life growing up with feelings of inadequacy, not good enough, not comfortable in my own skin, abandonment. And these are just precursors to, going down the road of addiction. They say that 60% of the people afflicted with ADHD not being treated or understanding do turn to drugs and alcohol to self-medicate. So I went to college, Well, first, let me tell you that I'm born and raised by a blind man. And my mother left when I was a year and a half because direct result of this disease. So we were different growing up. And my drinking, I couldn't wait to get into the bars and the clubs. 16 years old, I looked like a 5-year-old. But yet I had a fake ID and I was in there. And it was fun. I went to college. I became a bartender. And for the next 20 years, 15 years, I traveled the world. I partied all the time. I partied with the owners. I would tend bar, and there would always be Coors Light on ice before I even left work. And I loved it. I loved it. I loved the excitement. I loved the fun. And, those were rules that I had. I'd never drink behind the bar. And, always after work. And it was fun. And then it started to turn. I would, have a drink or two during work. And they were subtle. This was the subtle.
So the rules kind of, you just bent them a little.
Well, it was the progression of my disease.
Yep.
Knowing what I know now about my disease, it was the progression that started, in the late 20s, in my late 20s. So, then as the parties progressed and it became more and more of my life, whereas drinking would have been 1 or 2 nights, it became 3 or 4 nights a week, and then 6 or 7. And then I was picking up a drink one way or another every single day. I worked hard today. I deserve it. So then it was hard to hold my liquor as well. And my time span of drinking, was shorter. So then I discovered cocaine. My drug of choice, my elixir, my muscles, I found cocaine, and it was wonderful, made everything better. And then, I would have a line or two in the clubs, in the bathroom. And, during this time, you introduce a drug into your life. Now you're becoming sneaky. Now you're lying about things, because doing cocaine in a bathroom is not right. Mm-hmm. And where drinking was, okay, now I'm becoming a drug addict. So as I went from line to drink, then it became complete cocaine and no drinking, or minimal drinker. So my drug of choice started to take over in my 30s, in my early 30s. And I had lost every job that I ever had. My bartending career was over. I could not function holding a job, because given the choice of doing cocaine or going to work, cocaine was the clear winner every single time. So it started controlling my life. I got fired from working for my father. And at this point, I was barely existing whatsoever. I ended up with a guy. We ended up losing our house, evicted, can't pay the bills. Again, given a choice, I chose cocaine over anything.
Was he doing drugs as well?
Absolutely. We were the perfect
couple.
Yeah, the perfect storm, as you would. So, I ended up, one day, I remember what I was wearing. I remember the exact moment I went to my drug dealer's house and he didn't have straight cocaine. So he said, "Here, try this." And that day I smoked crack for the first time. That was the beginning of an absolute road to hell. I thought cocaine was bad. Smoke some crack and you'll know complete devastation. Yeah. So during that time, I had lost the ability to make money. My family ended up living in a motel with 2 dogs, being arrested for stupid stuff, because now you're the person who smokes crack. All the police know you. My once upstanding reputation is now I'm a crackhead. So, there was lying, cheating, manipulating, shell of a woman, disgraced from all aspects of society. And so during that time, I did cocaine and doing crack my entire 30s. So I perpetuated my disease for a while. And during that whole time, I was nothing. I was not a daughter or a sister or a friend. There was no caring in me. Became a dead shell of a woman. And I gave it all to my disease. I let it take, and I gave. So I'm living in a hotel, and I'm smoking crack, and I have 2 dogs with me, and, my then significant other. And I found out I was pregnant. And I looked in the mirror, and I swear I saw my mother's face in that mirror. And this is the mother that left me when I was 1.5 years old and was never there. So at that point, I believe my God was by me. And I went into rehab that day. So for my entire pregnancy, I was a sober woman. And I thank God for that day. And honestly, I had to thank a mom that abandoned me. She couldn't save herself, but I truly believe that she saved me.
Saved you. That's insane, man. I tell you that's powerful. The woman, the feelings that you've had, obviously, all this time for someone who abandoned you, just saved you. I mean, they say there's no love like a mother's love, and man, maybe that was her right there showing it. Man, that's intense.
Yeah, her disease, whereas it devastated me as a child. I look back now and I realize that her life led up to nothing because of her disease. And in death, she was able to come and help me. And all that hatred and feelings of abandonment came to my rescue that one day.
That day you looked in the mirror.
Yep.
And that's the day you went to rehab.
I went to rehab. And I was a month pregnant. I went to rehab. I stayed there my entire pregnancy. And I'd like to say that was all she wrote, but my story continues.
Chapter 2.
Yeah. So I'm a mom. I'm in recovery. I'm ADHD. I have a mental illness, undiagnosed, unmedicated. my significant other did not go down the road of recovery as I attempted to do. In the first 2 years of my son's life, I had 90 days, 100 days, 90 days, 30 days. It was rough. But I kept picking up and not stopping. And that wasn't me. I really believe that there's been, a higher power, my God, surrounded by me this entire journey. As I look back and understand how loving he was in my depths of hell. So then I became a single mom. It was great. I was in recovery. I went to meetings all the time. I took my infant. I built a life as a sober mom. And I couldn't believe it. I struggled, though. I struggled with it because I didn't completely get the fundamental aspects of, I'm in AA. I work the steps. I believe in a higher power now. I didn't quite harness the power that I can harness now, being a child of the Almighty, So I look back, and for 12 years, I was a single mom, sober, in AA, missing half of what life is. I say that because I relapsed. I got cancer. Sober mom, single mom. He's 8 years old, and I get breast cancer. So I was a warrior. I am a warrior. And I kicked the crap out of the cancer. But honestly, my program wasn't strong enough to get me through it. The mental aspect. So I one day I woke up and copious amounts of pain medication were being thrown at me. Not my drug of choice, but
A drug.
And all the disease started turning in my head again. After 11 years, my disease was on like a light switch.
That quick.
Yeah. I woke up from anesthesia after my first surgery, and I knew. I put a drug in my body after 11 years, and I knew.
Did you think about it prior? First of all, we're looking, it's cancer. This is life-ending disease, man. And so you do what you got to do to survive.
Mhm.
Obviously, you have to have surgery. Obviously, medicine is medically necessary when you're getting cut open. Believe me, I know. Before the surgery, did you talk to your doctors at all about the fact of being in recovery?
I look back and I question that. I question.
But then again, this is, again, you're faced with something that smacks you in the face, cancer.
Yeah.
So, obviously recovery, but maybe, well, I've got all this time on. This ain't no big deal now. It's better if it was a week. But
Yeah,
what do you mean? You question it?
Yeah, because to be honest with you, and this is the truth,
Mhm.
I knew it was going to be a free high.
But it was doctor ordered.
Exactly.
I needed it. This
Exactly.
wasn't me going out on the corner.
Nope.
This is me with an IV.
I had an excuse to
pass.
get high, a free pass.
So that was actually in the back, even
Yeah.
though cancer is right forefront.
Right there. And I had waking up from the initial surgery and knowing that my disease was on in my head. So my disease was talking to me from the first day after the surgery. So it started making decisions for me, not knowing.
So you woke up thinking, I need my pain meds.
Bzz, morphine, you know? And then subsequently in the following year, I did have 7 surgeries. And it was a rough time. And I never really abused the medication because it was under lock and key as prescribed by, my sponsor and my family. But I was high. My thinking was
It was altered, yeah.
Yeah. My thinking was back on drugs. And then one day, I wanted to get high more than I wanted to stay sober. And
That day, was there anything, something changed? Did something happen that you had that feeling? Or
the opportunity presented itself.
which wasn't there recently?
No, I was still going through a sober life at this point.
And then someone happened to just
And,
pop up.
I had no defenses. I did not have the power, my higher power. I did not have God helping me at that moment because there was no thought prior to me basically putting a crack pipe in my mouth. I didn't think of James. I didn't think of throwing away 11 years. I did every day before that. But that day. And I'd like to say that I got right back on sobriety, but I didn't. I tried to hold on for about 6 months, pretending, but everybody knew.
So that 6 months you're using.
I'm using, and I have, I'm a mom, and I'm going to school pickup.
So you're doing the whole mom thing, the PTA meetings and all that, but using.
Yep.
And no one knows, but everyone knew.
Everybody knew.
Anyone
And
confront
my
you?
son knew. I think back in he didn't know, but he knew.
Did anybody confront you on it? Call you out?
Yeah. And my decision was to continue using.
To lie.
Yeah.
Diane,
did
you
not-
using? No.
Yeah. Mom, why do you look so sweaty?
I'm hot. Mommy
Yeah.
doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
We are the masters of manipulators.
We are. Hey, Mom, why are you in the bathroom for so long?
No, Mommy doesn't feel good.
Exactly.
For everything you throw at us, we'll have an answer.
Exactly.
Yeah. Why? I'm just tired. I got a headache. Where are you going? How long are you gonna?
Right. And as addicts, we have to be that way because we have to continue the addiction. We lose the choice. When the addiction is on us and we are an addict, we lose the choice because the addiction is stronger.
That is so important for you people, for all of us, not you people, I'm sorry, for everyone to hear. Because for people who don't know about addiction, who have been blessed, who haven't been personally involved with it, or it's hard to believe that there's people that say that we don't know anyone who does drugs. Everyone knows somebody who knows somebody. But I've had people say, well, just don't. It's that easy. When I try to explain to people the strength that my last guest said the lowest of lows was she gave her daughter $100. That night while she was sleeping, she went and stole it to go buy. And the next day, the daughter said she couldn't find it. She goes, I helped my daughter look and act upset. She goes, that's what it does to you. She goes, I lost my kids to protective services. That's the choice that she chose, like you just said. Man, so please go on with that.
Yeah, so in my relapse, all that happened. In recovery, I bought a home. In recovery, I built a business. In recovery, I had friends and family back into my life. I was a single mom. I was present in my son's life. You know, I look back and I was a good mom in recovery. And then when I started back on that road of relapse, in short order, I lost my home. I lost my business. I lost my ability to show up for my son. You know, protective services were on their way over, and I gave temporary custody over to my brother. And I say temporary, but it lasted 5 years.
How old was your son at this time when that happened?
He was 12.
Man, what was that conversation like when explaining what was happening?
Again, he knew. And in that time, there was no conversations. I was in the midst of a disease.
Yeah, there was no logical speaking at that point.
Absolutely not. You know, you're going with Uncle,
You're going, well, it'll be okay. It'll be okay.
Yeah, and I'd like to say that I acted like a real demure woman at that point. I was a crazed lunatic on crack cocaine. There was no other thoughts. There was no thoughts of my son. There was no thoughts of my home.
That day, this just popped into my head just to show. I don't know if I'm right or wrong on this. That day that happened, where you had to give up your son, that day, what did you do later that day or that night?
Yeah, a big pile of crack cocaine.
That's
Indeed.
what I mean. That's
Yep.
what I mean. Going
And then-
crazy, going berserk because of the turmoil that just happened, because of the disease. As soon as he was gone,
Yeah,
man,
because of the disease. I have a mental illness that makes decisions for me. Once I put any kind of drug, alcohol in my body, I am giving up the power to make a decision.
for logical thinking. And not only that, but don't forget, too, when I talk about addiction and mental health, or addiction, don't forget it. It's not just mental health issues. You know, PTSD, ADHD. I
Yeah.
mean, anxiety, depression. It goes hand in hand.
Sure
So
does.
you're not just dealing with, you mentioned how your disease, your addiction, but you're also still dealing with ADHD.
Yep. Non-diagnosed,
Not
non-medicated. You know.
how old? I mean, because this was your whole life. How did you finally find out what?
You know how cunning. You know how crazy we are as addicts. I knew I had ADHD, but then I would go to the psychiatrist and I'd tell them exactly what they needed to hear to not diagnose me as ADHD. How bizarre is that I didn't want to be broken? Because, if you have ADHD, if you have mental illness, you're broken.
You're admitting to. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'd never even thought of that.
Well, so my relapse, my brother would not let me speak to my son. My brother would not let me see my son. My early attempts right after that relapse, my early attempts to getting sober and getting into a halfway house, again, at this point, still not having the power of help through my higher power. If I can't see my son, what's the use?
Yeah, might as well stay
What's
high.
the point? Yeah. And the pain and the guilt and the shame that was upon me, I couldn't shake it. So, And I also believe I probably wanted to get high. I wasn't one of those in and out girls. I wanted to get high, and I got high. And I continued to get high for 5 years.
After they took him away.
Yeah. Well, the first year and a half, I was sober. I had lots of periods of sobriety in hopes to, see my son, talk to my son. And I couldn't, and he didn't let me. And that's another story of forgiveness and understanding that I have found. But still, the resentments that I lived with, the anger that I lived with, the guilt and the shame of relapsing just fed my disease. And I went back to addict behavior quite quickly. And I say, as addicts, when the disease is controlling us and we are in our addiction, to perpetuate that addiction, you need to steal, lie, manipulate. You need to do unspeakable things to continue to use. People go to jail because of their addiction, because they did something.
Did you have that lovely encounter?
So everybody knew I was an addict in my town. You hang out with these people, you're seen with these people, they know who you are. And then they'd pull you over and they'd give you a ticket for something stupid so they can search you. And luckily they didn't find a lot of things that I had, but lots of fines. I couldn't pay the fines. You know why? Given a choice.
What are you going to pay, a fine? Buy an 8-ball.
Exactly. 8-ball won. Every single time. I had a storage unit. And, here my blind father. He was my chief enabler. I manipulated that man. He'd be sitting in a chair and his pants and wallet were sitting on his little hook. Blind man. I can't even tell you how many times I went through his pockets. And he knew because he could hear the bills sliding out of his wallet.
He didn't say anything.
No. If I...
Yeah, it's the things that when people don't understand the gravity and the intensity of addiction, just listen to that right there and see the reaction. And you'll know this much of the gravity.
Yeah. That's why I think your podcast is so important. Because it's one helping the other, knowing the other. Well,
that's just there's
my fight, our war. Your fight is my fight.
We fight together against the same war.
Yes.
Our fights might be different. Someone's fight might be alcohol. Someone's is meth. Someone's heroin. Someone's is fentanyl. But you know what? Our war is addiction. So separately, we're weak. You bring us together. You nailed it. We're warriors.
Yeah.
But the pain and everything that goes through, so here that's the depths of what you do. Your person taking care of you and loving you, who has got a disability, is blind, you're stealing from that person right in front, and he knows, but yet that's the power. That's what we're trying to explain. When people don't understand what we're trying to tell you, think about the actions and then the reaction. That's the power of addiction that leads you to do that to someone you love. Just to do it to someone you don't know, everyone knows is wrong. But to do it to someone that you love that much and know you're wrong and still do it.
Because you have to do it.
Yes, because you're not, like you said, you lost the power for logical thought.
And choice.
And choice.
We get to a point when we become addicts of any sort, alcohol, drugs, you name it, the choice is gone. That drug, and they say drug of choice. What's your drug of choice? Well,
The one that's in front of me.
well, mine is cocaine.
Yeah, they put that down. They put down a month vacation with your son in a tropical island. I mean, if anyone says they're taking that's an addict, you're lying. I mean, you know what you're going to take if you're an active addiction.
In my brain, I would like to be able to say that I'd choose that.
Son, I would. You do the right thing to say is this, but the truthful thing for people in addiction, we know what the answer is.
And the sad part that people don't understand when you're an addict is that in my heart, when I'm in my addiction, in my heart, I would give anything to be able to say that. I would give anything to be able to choose my son.
I had my brother, well, he's like my brother, and his kids I watched all be born. His youngest, which would be like my little brother, I saw he died because of fentanyl. 20 years of addiction. And Rick, God bless him, he said, man, I've never understood addiction. The power, it just doesn't seem like it's like that powerful. He didn't understand it till he saw it, lived it with his son, until one night he came on my show, my own brother, just talking about this. That was a hard interview. He goes, until one night I understood how powerful addiction was. He goes, for all these years, we did everything to get Kevin off of drugs. Counseling, recovery, the tough love, the tender love, everything you can imagine over and over and over for years and years and years we tried, and you still don't understand it. So we're doing all this to keep the drugs away from you. And he knew this. One night in their living room, Kevin was so bad and just with the withdrawal and the dope sick, he asked his dad, Rick, please take me to get some heroin. Please take me to get my hit. And Rick's like, did you just asked me to take you to go shoot up? And Kevin's like, yes. And he was like bartering with him. And he started crying. He goes, Dad, I don't want to be like this. And just started crying. And Rick, my brother, he started crying. I mean, it was intense. He goes, I saw my son break down and admit to me, he goes, I don't want to be like this. Yeah. And he goes, he goes, here's my son looking at me in my face, asking me to take him to go get drugs. The same dad who was screaming, crying to get you help. And that's the power of addiction.
Sure. It will. You wonder, as the addict, how much the disease takes. Did it take all this from me, or did I give it to my disease? You wonder about that. But mentally, as I'm in an addictive state, I don't have choices. There's no, should I do this? This is the right thing, or should I go get drugs? I'm not even thinking about the right thing. I'm thinking solely 100% get and use. Get and use. It makes all the decision. You don't even have a cognitive thought on the other side.
It almost makes it easier because there's no decision to make because it's been made.
Yeah.
So we got all this happening now for the next 5 years.
Yep.
What happened to change that to where you are?
Oh, well, I was very good at keeping my addiction afloat, I should say. I did, I manipulated, I lied, I took advantage of people. I was a master. A master. And I was able to get high every single day. And, I had a room. I ended up in a room, in a rooming house, where there was drugs everywhere. And that was okay. That's another thing about disease. As your disease continues to take and take and take, we adjust our it's okay to fit the downward spiral. You know, you ask me, I'm living in a room and my shades are drawn and I don't leave. You know, oh, this is okay. This is good.
Yeah,
I
I've got a
room.
roof over my
Yeah,
head.
I got a roof.
I've got
yeah.
a bed.
Yeah.
Look.
And it's crazy to me to think back.
We justify it like that's a
Yeah.
good thing.
Well, let me tell you about what a good thing is for a drug addict. COVID. You couldn't get evicted. Everybody was getting extra money. All the employment people were getting exuberant amount of unemployment, right? So all my drug addict friends are now rolling with twice as much money coming in. Diane, can you get? Hey, Diane, can I come over? Yeah, you can come over because I know damn well you have a pocket full of drugs. You know, and this whole time, I didn't have to worry about paying my rent. So for 2.5 years, I did not pay rent. Everybody had all this extra money, and we did more cocaine and crack and drinking. And it was getting bad, and I was at the end. You know, I knew. And meanwhile, I have 12 years of sobriety in the back of my head. I have all this reference.
Is any of that popping in it? Because we get those sober moments of disappointment in ourselves that last maybe 5-10 minutes before we can load up another pipe or another line or have another drink. Did any of that, because it's there for a second and it's gone just as fast?
Yeah. I would think about my son quite often. And that's really the only thing that that would come into the pain. I was, I guess, sober enough to allow the absolute devastating pain of my heart to shine through. And I had to at that point.
Was that the turning point for this?
I knew I was getting evicted because COVID was turning. So I knew that the gig is up, so to speak.
The game's almost over.
Yes, it is. And there was a 6-month period which I knew it was coming to an end. And I was happy at this point. I was glad, you know. And I was done. And then about 5 months prior, you know, I had been feeling this, knowing that the homelessness was coming. Because number one, I couldn't pay my bills now. I couldn't pay rent. So I knew I was going to be homeless. And my sister calls me. And she goes, and here's my little moment of hope. She goes, Diane, you know, if you have a day, an afternoon, if you have any time where you're sober, can you call me? I miss my sister. And can you just call me? If you have 10 minutes of sobriety, give me a call.
10 minutes.
I'll take any of it. I'll take any minutes that you can give me. You don't realize that for the last 5 years, I didn't talk to my family. I couldn't talk to my family. What are they going to say? Stop.
You're ruining your life, Diane. You got to stop. Do you know what you're doing to yourself? Do you know what you're doing to us? Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So you can't have those conversations as a drug addict. You know? So, you know, that was just a glimmer of hope that some part of my family has not totally given up on me.
Reaching out.
Yeah. The olive branch. These family members, they want to throw the addict in the streets and turn their back to him, right? But if I could say something to family members, parents and sisters and brothers and aunts, if you could continue to throw a line of hope towards the addict, it might help. Just that one little phone call. And then I looked forward to being able to pick up that phone and be sober enough to call her.
Your sister.
Yeah.
How long after you got that message that you called her?
I was high when I got the message.
Okay, so it wasn't then.
Yeah, but it was the next day.
So when you call
She
her
gave
up.
me permission not to feel such guilt and shame.
So how was that call?
I look back and, for once, I think she was so broken of not having her sister.
And it wasn't you gotta stop this. It
No,
was just, I miss
wasn't.
you.
It wasn't
miss you.
that. Yeah.
I miss you. I love you.
Yeah. And that's
Wow.
what, the families of the addicts, we don't want to be this way. We don't want to be without our family and our children and our jobs and our love. But you realize we have nothing left. There's no self-respect. There's self-loathing. An addict doesn't have dignity.
Man, I
Yeah.
tell you,
It takes everything.
you are just, you are so 100% on point with everything you are saying right now. And that's why I love what I do with this show, with the people on this show. We're not sugarcoating anything here.
No.
When I first started this, I said I'd never do that. If you don't like me, if you don't like what I say, what we say as a family, go watch someone else. There's plenty of support groups out there. We're not a group. We're a family here. We're not going to judge you. You can call us, any of us. Listen, I just used. Okay, well, let's talk. Not you know you're not going to be doing that. So the sister reaches out.
Yeah.
How long? What?
Well, so
are
I
the
knew
steps?
that the sister reaching out, I got a little strength, I got a little hope.
Mhm.
The looming eviction is coming, so I know the gig is up. And at this point, I was so done. And one of the greatest things an addict or an alcoholic could have, one of the greatest gifts, that you wake up one day and you say, I'm done. I'm fucking done.
One of the things I say now is, for me, I had to look in the mirror and I say, I own you. I own it. It no longer owns me.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You find that strength, and it could be some family members continuing to throw out.
Your sister?
Yeah, my sister. It was the turning point. Now, she likes to think that she saved me.
Hey,
but
let's give it to her, man. So what?
No, I don't give it to my sister.
Oh,
I give all
got
the
you.
glory to my higher power.
So you get that call, you make
Yep.
that call,
Yep,
and
so
now how things
I'm evicted on a Friday.
Uh-huh.
Of course, I'm so high.
on the day. On
On the
Friday,
day.
you're like,
I'm
I might as well go out with a bang.
Oh my God, I'm dragging hefty garbage bags because, us addicts.
That's your luggage.
Right, we don't have luggage. No Louis Vuitton here. I got the hefty, extra strength, dragging it down the road.
Economy size.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, so I'm high as a kite. And, I'm bringing everything over to my neighbor and another chief enabler of mine. And, so I'd called for a bed. And I had called 2 days in a row for a bed in a rehab. And, of course, now I'm getting high, So I called for a bed. Didn't have a bed. Called me back tomorrow. I called back tomorrow. Didn't have a bed. And in the back of me, my addict is saying, okay, good, let's go get high. Let's go get high. I finally get a bed. I'm in a motel room, smoking crack. Finally get a bed the next day. I make up this story that, I need X amount of money to, get on the train to get up to the rehab. And I need X amount of money to give the rehab, so I could have money for cigarettes, right? And again, manipulating and lying people around me, right? I used every last cent of that money on drugs.
It was supposed to be on the way for the train, on the way to the cigarettes, on the way to the rehab.
Yeah, I used, because that's the addict.
Yep.
That's the addict making those decisions, up until the very last moment.
Second.
So there I was, standing on a platform with my hefty bag. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to do. And I can't get to, that was my turning point, That was the bottom. I couldn't go on anymore. I had used up my addiction. I have used up every resource. And it was the end. So I called, my old sponsor. And I told her my tale. And she said, call me up in 10 minutes, right? And at this point, I had missed my bed, because there's a little time slot there. I missed my bed. So she knew I meant business. She knew me as a recovered woman. And she said, I'll be right there. So from going from absolute, utter defeat and devastation, all I had to do is pick up the phone to another addict or alcoholic in recovery, and she was there immediately. No questions asked. And that's our war part. We help addicts. We help alcoholics. Been there. I'm here. Are you ready?
Let's go. Here, Give me your bag. Go in the truck. Let's go.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So she comes and gets you.
She comes and gets me, man. And the next day she brings me in her house, which, she must have known that God said to her,
she needs you.
She needs me. She did. I didn't need her. She was such a loving, godly presence that day. She made me a meal, and she goes, and I'm going, wow, because I hadn't had a
meal ever.
I hadn't had a decent meal in a very long time, and it was delicious. I remember that. So I purposely pick. At this point, I had zero, nothing. They say in AA that you the God, right? I had the gift of desperation. I knew, and this was my strength, that I was done. And I say it that way because, I'm done. And by saying that is I'm stopping the power of the addiction to continue to pull me.
You are now in charge. You own it.
Yep. And so I went to a rehab and I went long term. I was no longer trying to manipulate the situation. Because
you gave in.
Yeah.
You gave yourself.
I surrendered.
You gave yourself. Yeah.
Yep. I surrendered. And, the gig is up, Diane. There's no more fight in me. I lost.
So from that point on,
man,
she took it. Is she still? Is she still in your life at this point?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you want to say her name or no? It's up to you.
Geez, it just escaped me.
No.
Give me a sec. No, a shout out to Mary from Belmar, New Jersey. Her last name starts with an S.
Mary, God bless you, man.
Yeah.
Look, Mary, this is because of you. This is because of God. This is because of you.
Sober woman today.
Amazing
because
person sitting here because you reached out. You answered your phone.
Yeah.
You answered your phone.
And I love how you say my fight, our war.
It's our war.
We are not alone.
No, and that's what people that don't understand addiction don't understand. That's what addiction makes you feel like. You could be surrounded in a room by your entire family, friends, coworkers, people you've known since kindergarten, all piled in a room, smothering you, and you could be 100% alone at that moment in time because of addiction. That's addiction. Someone asked me one time, I go, picture being in a hole, a black hole, and it gets deeper and deeper and darker and colder and scarier by the second, and it never ends.
No, it doesn't.
And they were like, whoa. I go, that's just the beginning. It gets, every time you blink and breathe, it
and
gets
then the
worse.
hole gets smaller
it gets
and smaller.
and smaller, and the light gets dimmer and dimmer.
Yeah.
And then it starts over.
Yeah.
That is insane.
It is insane.
And it's been...
well, I knew things had to change. And I knew, the gift. Like I said, I was done, man. So, drinking and drugging was no longer an option. I had to tell myself that on a daily basis. Because, my disease is still pulling me. But, I had to say it every day. And I went to rehab for 3 months. And then I moved into a sober living environment for 1.5 years up in Danbury. I left everything that I knew growing up. I left the Jersey Shore, where the beach was 1.5 blocks away from me. Not that I went there because my shades were drawn and I was, in the cave of addiction with the beach 1.5 block away from me. And again, that's the disease. That's my black hole. Knowing that there's a big, beautiful beach across the street, I'm still in my black hole.
And that was your comfort zone.
Yeah. Like you said, that black hole where your family is there. Wow, I have the love of my family right here. And I can't get there.
You can see it, and you just...
Yeah. So, yeah. And it's funny, when I started my journey of sobriety, I quit using drugs, but I was the same person. Now I'm a liar, because now these behaviors are the only things that I know how to do, because I have been doing them for my entire relapse. So I don't know how, to be honest. I do not know how to have self-esteem, or I don't know how to not manipulate people. And these are addict behaviors that are now in my sobriety. So that's where the joy started, where I took the journey of change. And if you're a miserable, sober drug addict, the odds of you going back to drugs is pretty high. So, we can get out of detox, and if we don't start moving forward into a new way of living, that's where the joy comes in. That's where the amazing part of life comes in. Because of, me taking this journey, learning how to be honest, learning how to actually care about another human being and not wanting to take from them.
That isn't, I tell you, and that's another thing I tell people is, all of a sudden caring, it's like, what's caring? Do you're having these emotions, love, happiness, joy, screw you. You know what?
Yeah.
Manny, you're hurting my feelings. I don't fucking care. I don't care because that's how the addiction takes over. You don't care.
Oh,
You don't have. But the thing is, it's not that you just don't care because you think it's tough guy to say. You don't care because you don't feel it.
yeah.
You don't. And it was so. It's just like you see my own mom. I saw her bawling her eyes out right in front of me, and I was just like this. All right. All right. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. Now, as I look back, I was sitting there at the same table about a year or two after being sober, looking at my mom, and I remembered that conversation. I lost it. And she's like, "What's the matter?" I go, "Remember that time, that conversation? You were beating on your chest. I was breaking your heart." And I was just like, whatever. And typical mom fashion, "Oh, it's okay." No, it's not okay. That all of a sudden, it's like, I felt what it was like to hurt somebody. It was like, whoa, that was intense because I didn't feel it. It
Yeah.
was that emptiness. It was, I didn't care.
So, Manny, I'm going to start talking about my God.
Go for it.
And, I could sit there and say, I did this or I did that or I did this. I didn't because I couldn't. I didn't have the power within me because all my power was my addiction. And that I gave all the power to my addiction. So in recovery, I had to learn how to be a sober woman. And I knew what a drug addict looked like because I could look in the mirror. What does a sober Diane look like? Or what does all those sober women over there look like that I want? And I changed. I did the steps. I freed myself from the guilt and the shame of all my actions. And I believe in a higher power without a doubt. I believe in God. Every single time I bring God into my life, he'll show up and he makes it. He does way better than I do. And, he blows me away every single time. I prayed before I walked into this studio today. And, while being nervous, and look at us now, like, I'm so comfortable in the understanding of how I could help another human being, another drug addict.
Let go, let God.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, for me, it's a macho thing too. It's like, I can do it. I don't need any help. But then as things started to get better for me, I was born and raised Catholic. That's my faith, and I'll never try to push mine on anybody. I don't care what your faith is, as long as you have it.
Yeah.
But for me, I had to believe it, and so I kept saying it, which was the start.
Sure.
And things started happening. I was like, wow. But then it was like, well, it can't get any better. I got to be back to me to make it stronger. So things started to plateau. I got to let go. If I don't do this won't, I have to do this. I have to believe it'll be better. And all of a sudden I let go.
Let go.
And all of a sudden I was like, what do you mean this thing came through? How? I didn't show up for this. I didn't. And that's what
Let
it
it
is.
go.
You have to
Yep.
believe. I tell people that believe in you don't have to believe in my God. I don't have to believe in yours. As you believe in your faith. One time I said, I don't care if your faith is praying to a dead possum's ass.
Yeah.
Pray to something that you believe in, that with your full commitment. And
understand that it can help.
it can.
Yeah.
And that's where you are now. I mean, I didn't know you then. You didn't know me back in my then. But the you that you are now is just a beacon of just hope and love and inspiration.
Yeah.
I mean, that's you. Just looking at you.
To come from a lying, stealing, manipulating addict of a woman, and today to be able to have my son back in my life and be the mother to my son. And he comes to me, and I've been able to guide and support and love my son. Also ADHD. Also a drug addict. He came to me last October 10th and he says, Mom, I'm doing cocaine. You know, he used to say, I'll never do cocaine. You know, I'll never do it. I'm like, and this is what I used to tell him all the time. I said, James, your DNA sucks.
Just letting you know.
Just letting you know. Your father, your mother, I just want you to know. You're
Thank
fucked.
God he came to you.
Yeah. And he came to me and we put, and through the resources of my community, and I say, I have a community now that surrounds me to show me support and love. And I'm not alone.
Nope.
This is our war now, when we were all warriors. And I needed a rehab for my son, right? I had my idea of what rehab I wanted him to go. I stopped. I asked God for help. My son went to a country club rehab for free. How does that work, God?
Yep.
You know?
Was his, not yours.
Right?
Just like what
It's
works
God.
for you doesn't work for me. What doesn't work for me doesn't work for you.
You know, and there's 100 million different ways to get sober.
Exactly.
And there's 100 different ways to stay sober.
Yes.
You know, how free do I want to be? I want to be pretty free. I want to be able to live in my life, my light, and to show my son love. I mean, love. And he's like, he says, I love you, Mom, every single conversation that we have. He wrote a paper in school. The most important person in your life. He wrote it about his mom. Me. The woman who abandoned him to choose drugs over him. The woman who threw him into a world that he didn't feel safe. You know, he felt safe. It was his uncle and aunt. But deep down inside, he didn't have a mom. He didn't have that. I understand what it's like to not have the mom. And I did it to my son. And to, you know, so now he's in a halfway house, in a sober house. And now he's graduating high school this year. And now I pick him up last week or so, and the principal, the assistant principal, and the management, the head of this department that he's involved in, want to meet me. So they show up at the door where I'm picking up James, and they said to me, well, we really just wanted to meet you. Because that's all James talks about. My mom, my mom. And, you know, thank God I had makeup on that day. But, you know, but these are just the gifts of sobriety. These are the gifts of continued sobriety. Whatever you lost, you can get back.
Yes.
Whatever that disease has taken from you, you don't lose hope, because once you start staying sober, you can get all that and a whole lot more.
Without a doubt. And the thing is, if you don't do not what we tell you to do, what we share with you, the other option is you could die. And you can miss out on all the opportunities that Diane is enjoying with James.
Yeah.
In her life, and her sister, and her family, and her family here at My Fight Our War. And, you know, this is just such an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Well, I love seeing you when we're here.
Yeah.
But to be able to sit down like this, before we end right now, for that person who's in this room right now with the shades drawn, with their son and daughter that's no longer theirs because they gave them up and they chose a crack pipe, that they feel that they're abandoned right now. What do you have to say to that person?
Wow, you got me on that one. From the depths of my soul and every morsel in my body that knows everything you are feeling right now. I have been there, and you are hopeless and helpless and alone and broken, and you can't find the light of day, let alone a way out. There is. And you don't have to live that way anymore. And please, just ask for help and accept the help. Whew. You know, Manny, you just brought me back to every feeling that I felt because I was in that room. I was that person.
Were. Now,
Were.
look who you are now.
Yeah, because I choose sobriety today.
Exactly.
And I choose to, sit down with Manny when I'm a little nervous. So
you tore it up.
Thank you.
You.
I love being sober. I love helping people, So I gave a coin yesterday to a very dear friend of mine. And it was such an honor that she chose me to give her coin. In addiction, trust me, nobody chose me. Nobody chose me. And to have come to a point where she chose me because she likes what my sobriety looks like. And she likes the feeling that we have together of friendship and love, understanding. And, I went up there and what a joy to be a part of a community that isn't addictive or nasty or ugly.
They're not judgmental.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And debilitating fear. That person in that room right now with the shades, they are consumed by fear. They can't make a move. I asked 2 questions. Are you done? And are you willing to work for it?
Yes.
Yeah. So I thank you, Manny. What a treat this was.
Man, I tell you, you just blew this out of the park, man. This show right here is going to touch so many lives on so many levels, and I can't thank you enough. I've had the pleasure of meeting you a few times and enjoyed every minute of it. This is our first time sitting down with something like this, and I feel even closer to you. And I am so honored to be able to call you my family.
Yeah. Thanks, Manny. I am honored.
Man. And look, I'll be seeing you in a little while.
No doubt. I got to go to work.
You know what? Just My Fight Our War. We're here to help, and we couldn't do it without Diane. We couldn't do it without all of you. So please, like she said, pick up the phone, reach out. It's okay. The things you've lost, you can get back. When you can't get it back is when you don't reach out, and you may not wake up, and you're going to lose out on what she now has. So I love you guys. Thank you for your love and support with My Fight Our War. Please go to YouTube, subscribe to us there, and to TikTok, and follow us there to see all our content. Our shows will be dropping, and you definitely don't want to miss this one. So again, thank you guys. Love you, and keep fighting the good fight.